We all know the story, right? We're in the middle of this amazing green energy revolution. You see those sleek electric vehicles just gliding down the street, and you see those massive wind turbines spinning out on the horizon. It all feels so clean, so optimistic, like the future is finally here. But what if that bright green future has a dark underbelly? What if the very technologies that are supposed to save the planet are built on a foundation that's actually anything but clean? Okay, let's really get into this, because the real cost of this whole transition, that's the dirty secret we need to talk about. You see, the entire green revolution, I'm talking everything from the battery in your car to the generator in a wind turbine, it all depends on a pretty small group of highly specialized raw materials. And we're not talking about stuff like iron or aluminum here. No, no. These are specialized, often rare elements. They are the absolutely essential, irreplaceable ingredients for our green future. And this table here really shows you exactly how that works. Just look at the rows for wind turbines and electric cars. You see those letters ND, PR, and DY? Well, they stand for rare earth elements. A tiny little bit of one of them, dysprosium, makes the magnets in an EV motor or a wind turbine incredibly powerful and efficient, even when they get super hot. And what does that mean? It means lighter cars and cheaper energy. It's kind of like the magic ingredient that makes the whole system work. This is exactly why governments call them critical minerals. They're not just essential for green tech, but for our entire modern economy and even national security. But here's the kicker. Their supply chains are incredibly fragile. A lot of them are dominated by just one or two countries, which, you can imagine, makes the rest of the world really, really vulnerable to any kind of disruption. So we need these minerals for our green future. Got it. But here's the first huge paradox. Getting them out of the ground is a shockingly dirty business, which kind of forces us to ask, is this whole thing just a green illusion? And this quote from energytransition.org just hits the nail on the head. It talks about extractivism, which is basically just a word for an economy built on pulling raw materials out of the earth on a massive scale, like what we did with coal and oil. And the question it raises is a big one. Can we really build a sustainable future on top of a practice that is by its very nature totally unsustainable? Let's look at a real-world example. Lithium. Over half of the world's entire reserves are in South America's lithium triangle. And to get it, mining operations have to pump up enormous amounts of precious groundwater in places like the Atacama Desert, literally one of the driest places on the entire planet. This is devastating fragile ecosystems and, maybe most importantly, threatening the water supplies and ancient livelihoods of local indigenous communities. It's causing huge social conflicts over land, over resources, the whole shebang. So here's the question we have to ask ourselves. Are we actually ending our reliance on fossil fuels, or are we just trading our dependence on oil barons for a new dependence on mineral extraction that comes with all the same environmental and social baggage? It really feels like we're just rebranding an old exploitative model. So beyond all that environmental damage, there's a second crisis brewing. This one is all about economics and geopolitics. And honestly, there's no better example of this than the story of dysprosium, that magic ingredient we were just talking about. Just look at this chart. It lays out the problem so clearly. The dark blue bars, that's China's legal production of dysprosium. See how it's kind of flat? Now look at that solid blue line just curving sharply upwards. That's global demand, and it's being driven by the EV revolution. That growing gap you see between supply and demand, it isn't just a gap, it's a chasm. And here's how fast that chasm is getting wider. By 2025, which, let's be honest, is right around the corner, China's own domestic demand for electric vehicles is projected to eat up 70% of its entire legal supply. You do the math. That leaves next to nothing for the rest of the world's car makers. This prediction from the experts puts it bluntly. The global auto industry has been so focused on getting lithium and cobalt for their batteries, right? Well, they're about to get slammed with another massive supply shock for the metals they need to build the actual motors. They're going to be scrambling, and there might not be anything there for them to find. So how are countries supposed to respond to this looming crisis? Well, they're throwing out the old playbook about global free markets, and they're starting to play a new, much more ruthless geopolitical game. The hot new strategy is called friendshoring. Friendshoring is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Instead of just buying from whoever's cheapest, countries are now building their supply chains exclusively with nations they trust, their quote-unquote friends. It's a strategy to make sure a geopolitical rival who controls the resources can't just pull the plug on them. In this new world, it's all about picking sides. And this table here shows you friendshoring in action perfectly. Look at Australia's policy. When Japan, a key ally, wanted to invest in an Australian rare earth company, boom, deal approved. But when a Chinese-linked fund tried to do the very same thing, nope, investment rejected. And they were even forced to sell the shares they already had. It's the same goal, but a different passport leads to a completely different result. So this is basically the new playbook for global resources. Step 1, a chokehold, where one country controls a vital mineral. Step 2, in response, other countries adopt the strategy of friendshoring. And step 3, the weapon they use to enforce this strategy is foreign investment screening. Those are the exact government reviews we just saw Australia use to block China while rolling out the red carpet for Japan. Which brings us right back to our final critical question. Look, the promise of a clean energy future is absolutely real, but the path we're taking to get there is filled with some serious problems. We're talking about devastating environmental costs, a supply crisis that's about to explode, and a new era of geopolitical conflict fought over minerals instead of oil. So as we race towards this green future, we really have to ask ourselves, are we building something truly new and sustainable, or are we just repeating the worst mistakes of the 20th century, but with a whole new set of resources?